She was gone for 14 years. No trace, no answers, no goodbye. Then one night, barefoot, shaking, a young woman walked into a stranger's backyard and asked a question no one expected. "Have you seen my dog?" What happens next will break your heart and leave you speechless. But before we begin, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? The night air in Eugene, Oregon, was strangely quiet. It was almost midnight on a Wednesday when Clyde Dempsey heard the soft creak of the wooden gate behind his house. He lived just off River Road in one of those quiet properties near the tree line where houses were sparse and streetlights barely reached the driveways. His place had a long backyard that faded into dense woods, a natural barrier that gave him the solitude he'd sought since his wife, Carol, passed 3 years ago. At first, he thought it was a raccoon. They knocked over his trash cans all the time. Then he heard a voice, faint, breathless. "Buddy?" Clyde blinked twice. It wasn't the name that startled him. It was the voice, small, feminine, young. It sounded like it belonged to a child, maybe 12, maybe younger. He stood in the dim kitchen, the refrigerator door still open, casting a dull yellow glow over the counter cluttered with unopened mail. The sound came again. "Buddy, where are you?" His feet moved before his mind caught up. He opened the back door slowly, the screen groaning on its hinges. A chill swept in with the night fog. The woods looked as they always did, black and endless. But something else caught his eye. There, standing by the bird bath his wife once adored, was a girl, barefoot, covered in dirt, hair tangled in thick strands, her jeans torn at the knees. She stood with her arms wrapped tightly around herself, shaking, but not from cold. Her lips were trembling, and her wide brown eyes scanned the backyard as if searching for something invisible. She couldn't have been older than 20, but the way she said the name, Buddy, it sounded like she was 6. "Miss?" Clyde called gently, stepping out onto the patio. The girl flinched. She turned slowly, staring at him like he was a ghost, her expression stuck between confusion and disbelief. This is Buddy's house," she whispered. Clyde felt his blood go cold. Buddy had been the name of a golden retriever owned by the Saunders family, the same family that lived here before Clyde moved in, 14 years ago. "Buddy's not here anymore," Clyde said, cautious, like talking to a frightened animal. Are you hurt?" The girl took a step back. Her feet sank into the damp grass. She looked around again as if the house might rearrange itself, as if she'd landed in the wrong dimension. "I was just playing," she said. Then I couldn't find him." A pause. "I was 6. He ran into the woods. I followed." Her voice cracked. "And then I don't know where I went." Inside the Eugene Police Department, Detective Carla Monroe had just poured her second cup of burnt coffee when the call came in. A local man claimed a girl walked into his backyard, claiming to have been missing for 14 years. Another hallucinating runaway? Another unstable vagrant? But then the dispatcher read the name she gave, Lily Saunders, and Carla dropped the cup. Hot coffee splashed across her desk, but she didn't notice. Her hands trembled as she reached for the file she'd kept tucked away at the bottom of her drawer for over a decade. Case Re37FE. Lily Saunders. Missing since 2011, she remembered every detail. The warm spring day at Alton Baker Park. The red balloon Lily held when she vanished. Her mother's screaming voice echoing through the trees. The park emptied. The search dogs lost the scent by the riverbank. No sign, no struggle. No evidence. Just gone. And now, 14 years later, she walks barefoot into a stranger's backyard, asking for her dog? Back at the house, Lily sat wrapped in one of Clyde's old quilts. Her hands shook as she held a cup of lukewarm cocoa, though she hadn't taken a sip. She stared at the wall, at the family photo Clyde hadn't taken down. "Who are they?" she asked. "My wife," Clyde said softly. "And our daughter. She lives in Salem now. That was taken in '05. Lily nodded like she understood. But she didn't. She couldn't tell the year. She couldn't tell the month. She had no ID, no phone, no memory of anything between that day in the park and tonight. Only fragments, a dark room, the smell of mold, a dog barking somewhere far away, someone whispering numbers in her ear, over and over. "Was Buddy a golden retriever?" Clyde asked gently. Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she said. "He had a red collar. I gave it to him on my birthday." And then she pulled something from her pocket, a small rusted dog tag, scratched, nearly unreadable. But Clyde could still make out the word. Buddy. By morning the house was surrounded, marked cars, unmarked cars, news vans perched at a distance, their antennas pointed skyward, drones hovered. Carla pushed through the crowd and went straight to the front door. She wasn't ready for what she saw. Lily, same eyes, same soft freckles. Same scar on the chin from a fall off her bike 2 weeks before she vanished. But older, faded, almost someone else. "Lily," she said. The girl blinked. Tears welled. "I don't remember you," she whispered. "I don't remember anyone." But Carla did. She remembered the mother, Megan Saunders, who had buried an empty coffin, who moved out of town 5 years after the case went cold, who never answered Carla's last email. Now she would have to be told. The Saunders case was the one that haunted Carla the most. She'd been new then, ambitious, idealistic, and fresh from Portland, but nothing had prepared her for the silence of a mother who had nothing left to scream. "Don't give me hope if there's none," Megan had said at the time, "because that will kill me faster than losing her." And now, 14 years later, Lily sat on the edge of Clyde's couch, holding a cocoa she didn't drink, staring out the window at a tree she swore used to have a tire swing. She spoke softly, disconnected, like her mind was floating elsewhere. "I walked for a long time," she said, "in the woods. Then there was a man, but not at first." "What do you mean?" Carla asked. "I mean, first there was just quiet. Then I wasn't me anymore." She looked up, confused. "I feel like I was somebody else." For years, far away in a small rental home just outside Coos Bay, Megan Saunders sat with the TV off and her phone silent. Then it rang, unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. When she answered, her voice was hollow. "This is Megan. Megan, this is Detective Monroe." Silence. I think we found your daughter." Another pause. "I buried my daughter." "I know," Carla said softly, "but she's alive." The line stayed silent. Until Megan's breath hitched, one sharp, gasping sound, and then the sobs began. That night, Lily woke up screaming. Sweat soaked the quilt. Clyde ran in, but she couldn't stop crying. Her nails dug into her temples, her voice hoarse. "She said I was Ella," she cried. "She said I wasn't Lily anymore." "Who?" Carla asked later when Lily calmed. But she didn't answer. She just stared at the photo again, the one with Clyde's daughter, and whispered, "She had that same hair." Carla froze. "What did you say?" "She had that hair, but she was older, like a teenager, when I was little." "You remember her?" "I don't know," Lily said. "I just remember someone who told me Buddy wasn't real." She closed her eyes. "And that my name wasn't Lily." Lily didn't sleep again that night. Clyde awoke to the soft sound of the kitchen window being pushed open. When he got to his feet, she was already outside, sitting cross-legged on the dewy grass, still wearing one of his oversized T-shirts. Her knees were streaked with dirt, her face illuminated by the moonlight, and her gaze locked onto a point in the trees that didn't seem to exist. He stood by the doorframe, watching in silence. trying not to startle her. There was something about the way she sat, still, alert, as if listening for a sound no one else could hear, not afraid, not even sad, just waiting. Finally, he stepped onto the porch and sat down on the top step, leaving enough space between them for silence to breathe. Lily didn't turn her head, but she spoke. "I used to feed the birds right there." She pointed at the spot near the bird bath, now overgrown with weeds. "I'd hold out crumbs and wait. They didn't come every day, but when they did, I felt like I was chosen." Clyde swallowed. He didn't tell her that the bird bath had been empty for years, or that raccoons had long scared off the songbirds. "Do you remember anything else?" he asked gently. "I remember colors. Red, the color of my dog's collar. The color of a balloon. And there was a sound, something loud, then quiet, then nothing." She turned her head slowly. "But my name is Lily. I know that. They told me it wasn't, but I know it is." At Eugene General Hospital, the medical team ran tests, asked questions, tried to stitch together what the years had unraveled. She didn't remember an address or a birthday. She flinched when anyone raised their voice. She didn't respond to the sound of her mother's name, but she spoke of Buddy. The dog, as if time had frozen the moment she chased him into the trees. Dr. Reynolds, a trauma specialist, made careful notes. Displays signs of dissociation. Severe memory gaps consistent with long-term psychological conditioning. Behavior and language patterns suggest she was isolated, possibly for years. May have been reprogrammed with a different identity. Reprogrammed. It was a word that hit Detective Carla Monroe like a punch, because it meant this wasn't just a case of disappearance. This was removal, replacement, erasure. Meanwhile, Megan Saunders sat in the hospital hallway, trembling. She had been driven in from Coos Bay. She had barely spoken on the trip. The social worker who accompanied her said Megan kept her eyes closed the entire time, as if afraid that opening them would make the illusion vanish. When Carla finally emerged, Megan stood without a word. "She's in the room," Carla said. "She remembers me?" "Not yet." Megan's eyes closed again, but this time she walked forward. Inside the room, Lily sat on the bed, hugging her knees. She looked up as the woman entered, hesitant, teary-eyed, holding a photo in her hands. Megan didn't speak. She just sat in the chair across from her, placed the photo on the bed, and whispered, "This was you and me, your 6th birthday. You cried when the balloon flew away." Lily stared at the image. Something flickered in her eyes. "I know that dog," she said softly. Megan's breath caught. "You do?" "That's Buddy. He used to bark when the doorbell rang." Megan reached out slowly. Lily didn't flinch. She let the woman hold her hand. For a second, it felt like everything was okay, until Lily said quietly, "But that's not me. That's her, the other girl. I just remember the dog." Carla watched from behind the one-way mirror. Her partner, Davis, stood beside her, arms crossed. "You think it's her?" he asked. Carla nodded. "DNA says yes, but her mind's been twisted. Like Stockholm Syndrome?" "Worse," Carla said. "Someone didn't just trap her, they rebuilt her." Back in the hospital room, Megan stayed by her side. She told her stories. The broken arm from climbing the wrong side of the jungle gym. The time Lily colored all over the living room wall and blamed the neighbor's kid. The time she got lost in Target and was found petting a display of stuffed bears. Lily listened. She even smiled once. But every time Megan said, "my daughter," something dark flickered behind Lily's eyes, as if someone somewhere had drilled a different truth into her skull. Later that evening, Clyde returned home alone. The silence felt louder than usual. He walked into the living room and found something resting on the windowsill. The dog tag, Buddy. Lily must have left it there before she left with the hospital staff, but next to it was something else, a small folded piece of paper. He opened it. "Thank you for not asking me to remember, just for listening." His throat tightened. She didn't belong to him, she never had. But for one brief, haunting night, she felt like family. At the hospital, Lily was moved to a private room with no windows. Dr. Reynolds advised it. Too many stimuli too soon. But that night, Lily scratched something into the wall beside her bed. Over and over again. Letters. A word. "Ella, who's Ella?" Megan asked the next morning, staring at the wall. "She called me that," Lily said. "Who?" "The woman." "What woman, baby?" But Lily's eyes went blank again. She turned to the corner of the room and whispered, "She said Lily was gone." The day Lily was released from the hospital, clouds hovered low over Eugene, not heavy enough to rain, just enough to make everything feel a little wrong. The doctors said she was stable. The trauma specialist advised against reintroducing her too quickly to her former life, but there was no legal ground to hold her. Megan wanted her daughter home. Carla was uneasy, so Lily returned to a life she didn't remember. The house had changed. Megan had sold the old place years ago and lived now in a smaller bungalow near the University district. The walls were painted soft cream. There were no photos of Lily on display. Megan said she had packed them away when the grief became too much to bear. But Lily noticed something else. There was no sign of a dog, not a leash, not a bowl, not a single photo of Buddy. That first night, Lily stood in the doorway of what was now her room. It was small, clean, neutral, a twin bed with blue sheets, a desk with a closed laptop, a bookshelf lined with old novels and devotional books. None of it felt familiar, and yet something pulled at her, not from inside the room. From the closet, she opened it slowly, heart racing. Just clothing and a box of winter boots. Then she noticed the floorboard. It creaked differently. She dropped to her knees and pressed her hand to it. It shifted slightly like it wasn't fully nailed down. She tugged, and the board came loose with a dry snap. Underneath, a small velvet bag. Trembling, she opened it. Inside was a gold bracelet, delicate, tarnished, etched with letters so fine she had to hold it to the window to see. L.S. For the one who remembers, she didn't tell Megan about the bracelet. Not that night. Instead, she waited until her mother went to sleep, then sat alone in the living room. There was a clock on the wall that ticked loudly. She stared at it. 1:12 a.m. She wasn't sure why, but something in her chest told her that time mattered, that something had once happened at 1:12. When she finally slept, the nightmares returned. Same room, same whispering. But this time, she remembered a smell. Paint thinner, old books, candle wax, and a voice. "You are not Lily. Lily is dead." Detective Carla Monroe couldn't let it go, not just because it was the case that haunted her career, but because something didn't add up. Lily hadn't just vanished. She'd been erased, rebuilt, taught to be someone else. Carla went back to the original case files, photos of the park, interview notes. The local ranger who said he saw a girl with a balloon near the river. But no one believed him because he'd been drinking that day. The dog trainer who said Buddy had been oddly agitated for weeks prior. And the one detail Carla had forgotten. A witness, 8-year-old Ellie Martinez, had reported seeing a man in a tan sedan that day, said he was watching the park from across the street. The report had been filed, buried, labeled inconclusive. Carla called Ellie, now 22, and studying in Portland. "You said you saw a man that day, in a car." "Yes," Ellie said. "He was wearing a red cap, like the kind baseball coaches wear. He just sat there, didn't move. I remember because when I waved, he ducked." "Could you recognize him if you saw him again?" Ellie paused. "I think I already did once." "What? Years later, at a bus station. I thought it was him. He looked straight at me, then turned around and walked away. Back in Eugene, Lily sat in the back seat of Megan's car, fingers tracing the bracelet hidden in her coat pocket. They were parked in front of an old bookstore. Megan had run in for a church event program, left the radio playing static. Lily didn't know what pulled her eyes to the building across the street. It was a beige office complex, generic, boring. But the symbol on the door, 3 interlocking circles. She gasped. Her hand moved to her wrist, instinctively. Because that symbol was also the faint scar etched into her skin. "Where did you get that?" Carla asked. Lily had shown her the bracelet during a follow-up interview. "I found it in the closet." "Did it belong to you?" "I don't know." But it felt like it did. Carla examined the engraving. It looked professional, precise. And the message? For the one who remembers. It wasn't a gift. It was a challenge. Lily began to draw, not consciously, not artistically, just compulsively. Symbols, rooms, doorways, a hallway with 5 lights and a red button, a face with no eyes. Megan found the papers under her pillow. "Sweetheart, what is this?" Lily didn't look up. "I think I lived underground." Megan froze. "Underground? I don't know. I just remember cement walls, a bed with metal bars, a number on the wall." 28. That was my number. That same week, a call came in to the Eugene Police Department. An anonymous tip. A woman claimed she'd seen Lily years ago at a private Christian rehab facility in Idaho. "Called House of Grace," the woman said. "It was a place for runaways. They said they adopted girls off the streets, but they weren't supposed to talk to the outside world." Carla looked up the name. The facility had shut down in 2016. The address now listed as condemned property. But as she scrolled further, she found something that made her chest tighten. A group photo from a 2014 outreach newsletter. A dozen girls, white polos, hair braided the same way, eyes hollow, and in the back row, barely visible, Lily, or someone who looked exactly like her. Carla drove to Idaho the next day. The building was still there, rotting, collapsed roof, graffiti along the brick wall. But inside, the basement was intact. She descended the steps slowly. Each one creaked. And then, on the far wall, 28 small beds, each with a number above it. Lily's was there. 28. And carved into the wood of the bed frame, "Buddy is real. I am Lily. Please don't forget." Detective Carla Monroe didn't speak for the first 5 minutes of the drive back from Idaho. The old rehab facility still clung to the edges of her senses. The smell of wet cement, the faded cross stitched into the moldy banner. The beds lined up like a prison camp, masquerading as salvation. And that carving. "Buddy is real. I am Lily. Please don't forget." It was desperate. Etched by a child who was fighting to hold on to something, anything, that belonged to her. Carla drove until the sky turned a pale Oregon gray, the kind of dull color that made even the air feel tired. When she pulled into the Eugene precinct parking lot, she didn't go inside. She sat with her engine running, staring at the envelope on the passenger seat. Inside were printed photos from the newsletter, one of the old intake forms, and a blurry image taken from the security camera across the street from the rehab facility in 2013. Time-stamped 1:12 a.m. A girl, barefoot, walking alone into the night. Carla exhaled through her nose. It was time to talk to Megan. Megan Saunders sat on the back porch of her bungalow, holding the mug of tea she hadn't touched. Lily was inside, curled on the couch with a fleece blanket and her sketch pad, quietly drawing shapes that made no sense to anyone but her. "I need to ask you something," Carla said as she sat across from her. Megan didn't flinch. She only nodded. "Did you ever get any letters after Lily disappeared? Notes? Phone calls?" "No," Megan said quickly. Too quickly. Carla tilted her head. Megan looked away. "I got one," she admitted. "A postcard, 2 years after she vanished." "You never told me that." "I was afraid. It was postmarked from Kansas. There was no return address. It only said, 'She's happy, she's safe. You wouldn't recognize her anymore.'" Carla leaned forward. "Do you still have it?" Megan disappeared into the house and returned minutes later with a small wooden box. Inside, among old photos and receipts, was the postcard. A picture of a sunflower field on one side, the message written in neat block letters on the other. Carla turned it over. There, faint in the bottom corner, 3 interlocking circles. The same symbol on the building Lily had seen, the same symbol on her wrist. Lily didn't remember Kansas. She didn't remember Idaho. But when Carla showed her the postcard, her fingers trembled. "Someone gave me something once," Lily whispered. "A pin. It had that symbol on it. I was told to wear it during evaluations." "Evaluations?" "I don't know what they were testing." "A beat. Sometimes we had to speak in different voices. Other times they made us repeat things until our tongues went numb. There was one room with red walls. If you got sent there, you didn't come back the same." Carla's voice dropped. "Did you ever go?" Lily looked down. "I went twice." The more Lily tried to remember, the harder it became to distinguish between real memories and implanted ones. She would be in the kitchen, peeling an orange, and suddenly she'd feel as if she were back in that red room, squeezing the same fruit, as a woman barked numbers at her like commands. She couldn't trust her dreams. She couldn't trust her fears. One night she asked Megan if she had ever had another child. Megan shook her head, confused. "Why?" "I see a girl," Lily whispered, "with my face. But she isn't me. She looks at me like I don't belong." Megan hesitated. I almost adopted a child after you were gone," she admitted, "but I couldn't go through with it." Lily nodded, but her hands curled into fists. Something didn't fit. If she had been at that rehab center, if she had lived underground, if she had been told to forget her name, then someone had tried to turn her into someone else. Carla pulled old files, not just from Eugene. She started cross-referencing missing children across the country who had disappeared between 2009 and 2014 and were never found. She created a spreadsheet of girls between the ages of 5 and 10 with similar features: dark hair, brown eyes, petite frame. The list was overwhelming, but one entry stopped her cold. Name: Ella Kennedy. Age at disappearance. 5 disappeared from Kansas City, Kansas State, April 2010. Details: last seen playing outside church daycare. No signs of struggle. Witness claims she was lured into a van by a woman in a blue dress. Ella. The name Lily kept writing. The girl Lily saw in her dreams. The girl she sometimes thought she had been. Carla compared the age, the dates, the approximate location to the rehab center's intake records. There was a match. A girl entered under the name Ellie Kent just 3 months after Ella Kennedy vanished. No photo, no birth certificate, no exit record. "Am I Ella?" Lily asked one morning. Carla had come over to check on her. The question stopped her at the door. "No," she said gently. "You're Lily. We've done the DNA test. You're Megan's daughter." Lily looked down at her wrist. "But they told me. They said I wasn't. They showed me photos. They made me say things. They burned my drawings." A pause. "I don't know how to be someone anymore." Lily began to speak in her sleep. Megan started recording it. The words were jumbled at first. Repetitions of Buddy and 28 and Ella. But then came phrases that chilled her to the bone. She lied about the name. She told me to forget Lily. She said Ella had more value. Don't look at the red light. Don't talk when they're watching. She said I'd be safer this way. Carla sent the recordings to a forensic linguist who pointed out something strange. There were two distinct speech patterns. One matched Lily's current cadence. The other belonged to a younger child, one with different sentence structures, likely trained under different environmental pressure. This girl may have been coached, he said, conditioned, not only to forget who she was, but to become someone else. In desperation, Megan took Lily to Alton Baker Park. It was the first time since her return. The moment they arrived, Lily froze. Her body stiffened, her breath caught. "I was here," she said. "I had a red balloon." They walked slowly toward the riverbank. "There," Lily pointed. "That's where I saw him. He had a camera. He was watching." Megan's voice was shaking. "Do you remember his face?" Lily nodded. And then she did something no one expected. She picked up a stick and began to draw in the dirt. A face, rough, simple, but distinct. Carla later matched it to an old suspect file from a child exploitation ring busted in Boise in 2015. The man had escaped arrest. Name, Gregory Fenton. No known address. Still at large, back home, Lily couldn't sleep. She sat in the bathroom with the lights off, staring at the mirror. Her own reflection looked wrong, like a mask she hadn't asked to wear. She closed her eyes and remembered something new. A song, played on a loop, in the red room, soft, manipulative. She hummed the melody until she cried. Carla called in a favor with a retired FBI agent who had worked the Idaho sting years ago. The agent, Marcus Vell, remembered the name Gregory Fenton. Creep had ties to something called the Reclamation Network, he said. They were into identity erasure, claimed they were saving children from broken homes, mostly religious talk, but behind the scenes, brainwashing, psychological obedience. Some kids were trained to forget who they were. Did they ever recover any of the children? Only one. She didn't remember anything, couldn't even say her name. Carla's voice was cold. That girl was Lily. Lily stood on the edge of the river, the exact spot where she had vanished 14 years earlier. The same slope, now worn with time, the same oak tree, thicker but still scarred from the carving some teen couple had etched there decades ago. Her shoes sank slightly into the soft earth, but she barely noticed. She wasn't breathing, not really. She had been coming here in secret every afternoon, while Megan napped or met with her grief counselor, while Carla worked the case behind locked doors. Lily returned here with a pull in her chest, as if her bones remembered what her brain could not. Today, she brought something with her, a recorder. She clicked it on and whispered, "If I don't make it through this, I need someone to know what I've found." Earlier that week, Carla had received a call. Marcus Vell, the retired FBI agent, sounded breathless. "I found her," he said, "the woman from the rehab facility, the one who ran the program under a fake name." "Who?" "Her real name is Margaret Harrow, but she called herself Sister Grace." The name hit Carla like ice water down her spine. She was the one running the evaluations. She was the one teaching the girls to forget. "She's in Oregon," Marcus said, "living under a new name. Teaching Bible studies at a private retreat center in Bend." Carla stood. "Send me the address. I'm going." Carla drove alone, 3 hours to Bend. The sun hovered low as she pulled up to the cedar-sided house nestled among the pines. Wind chimes rattled on the porch. A dog barked somewhere in the back. Everything looked ordinary. She rang the bell. The woman who opened the door was in her late 50s, with silvering hair pulled into a tight bun. Her eyes were cold, calculating, too sharp for someone who claimed to teach peace and light. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for Margaret Harrow." The woman didn't blink. "I'm afraid you have the wrong house." Carla stepped forward. "You used to go by Sister Grace. You ran a home for girls in Idaho. You erased their names." "I taught broken children how to survive," she said evenly. "You buried them alive," Carla replied. A pause. Then the woman smiled and said, "Do you know where Ella is?" Back in Eugene, Lily's memories were bleeding together faster. In one moment, she was in the park again, 6 years old, holding Buddy's leash. In the next, she was in a windowless room with walls that hummed with electricity, being told, "Lily was stolen from her mother. You were meant to be Ella." She had repeated that lie for years. She had worn Ella's clothes, been taught Ella's birthday, written Ella's name in cursive in hundreds of notebooks. But one day she had refused. She had said, "My name is Lily." And the lights went out, and they locked her in the red room. Carla sat across from Margaret Harrow, her phone recording every word. "Why did you do it?" she asked. Margaret shrugged. "Because some children were better off becoming someone new. You stole identities. I gave them new ones. You took Lily." Margaret smiled again. "I didn't take Lily. She came to us after being discarded." "That's a lie." "Oh, she was too young to remember. But she wasn't the first." Carla narrowed her eyes. "She remembers now." That was when Margaret's expression faltered. She leaned forward, voice lower. "Then you should be careful, because memory is dangerous, and not everyone wants her to remember." Back home, Lily was digging again, literally. She had gone to the backyard, the old property where she believed the Saunders once lived before Megan sold it years ago. The house was empty now, pending demolition. She crawled under the porch and began to dig where she believed Buddy was buried. Her hands blistered, dirt packed beneath her nails. Then metal, a small, rusted tin box. She pulled it free and opened it. Inside, a photo of her and Buddy, a drawing she made at 6 years old signed Lily S. A cassette tape. She didn't have a player, so she ran, dirt-caked, to Clyde's house. He still had an old cassette deck in the garage. He stared at her as she burst in, tears in her eyes. "I need to hear it," she gasped. He plugged it in, pressed play. The tape crackled. Then, a child's voice, her voice. "My name is Lily Saunders. If anyone hears this, please tell my mom I didn't leave on purpose. Buddy ran and I followed. Then a lady said I had to forget. But I don't want to. I'm Lily. Please remember me." Lily fell to her knees and screamed. Megan listened to the tape 3 times before she could speak. Her hands shook the whole time. "I buried an empty casket," she whispered. "All these years, I thought she had died." Carla nodded. "They didn't just hide her. They tried to unmake her." Megan looked up. "Can we undo it?" "I don't know." Carla returned to Bend the next day with a warrant. But the house was empty. Margaret Harrow had vanished. No signs of forced entry, no note. Only the wind chimes still swinging softly on the porch. That night, Lily had the worst episode yet. Megan found her in the bathtub, fully clothed, rocking back and forth, whispering. She said, "I was just the body, that the name didn't matter." She said Ella was valuable. Megan dropped to her knees beside her. "Who said that, baby?" Lily looked up and said the name, Karen. Carla's eyes widened when she heard. Because Karen Holloway was the intake coordinator at the Eugene Community Center back in 2011. She had been present the day after Lily vanished, giving testimony about a suspicious man in the park, but she hadn't disclosed her connection to Margaret Harrow. Now it all made sense. She had been part of it. She had funneled Lily into the network, then lied to the police. They brought in Karen for questioning. She denied everything. But when Carla played the tape, Lily's voice as a child, Karen went pale. "That was recorded in the house," she whispered. "The one in Idaho." Then her voice cracked. "I told them not to keep her that long. She was supposed to be a short-term rewrite. But Margaret liked her, said she had something special." Carla leaned in. "What did they do to her?" Karen looked broken. "They made her disappear?" That same night, Lily disappeared again. Megan had gone to the store. When she came back, the door was open and Lily's sketchpad was gone. On the kitchen table, Lily had written a note. I remember now. I have to see for myself. Don't follow me. Carla tracked her phone to Alton Baker Park. It was off. But then she remembered Lily's drawing. The one she had drawn in dirt with the face of the man. Gregory Fenton, the one still at large. She put out an alert, but it was too late. Lily had already found the building with the interlocking circle symbol. She walked in, alone. Inside was dust, rot, abandoned files. She searched the rooms one by one, following a trail of symbols on the wall, markings she now knew by heart. They led her to the basement. There she found a door she had drawn hundreds of times in her sleep. Behind it, the red room, still intact, still glowing faintly from the emergency lights. She stepped inside, sat on the old metal bed, and whispered, "My name is Lily Saunders. I remember." That was when the voice came, from the doorway. "You shouldn't have come here." Gregory, older, but recognizable. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She stood and said, "You stole my life." He took a step forward. "Ella was promised. You were just available." She stared him down. "I'm not Ella. I never was." Gregory smiled. "No, but you were easier to shape." That's when the sirens echoed above. Carla had tracked the address. Gregory tried to run, but this time he didn't get far. Lily didn't cry when they took Gregory Fenton away. She didn't scream, didn't speak. She stood at the edge of the police tape, her fists clenched, her eyes steady. The building behind her, the place where her identity had been unmade, now sat under floodlights, swarmed by officers and federal agents with flashlights and evidence bags. Margaret Harrow was still missing. Karen Holloway had been arrested, but her cooperation was limited. She claimed she didn't know where the others were, didn't know how many girls had been through the system. But Lily knew there had been others, dozens. Some might still be out there, some might never remember. She was the one who did. At the station, Carla gave Lily space. She knew the adrenaline had kept her going, but now the crash would come. Lily sat in a chair, arms crossed, rocking slightly. Megan burst through the front doors minutes later, frantic, tear-streaked. She dropped to her knees in front of her daughter. "Why?" she gasped. "Why would you go alone?" Lily didn't answer at first. Then she looked down. "Because I needed to be the one who ended it." Megan clutched her hand. "I thought I lost you again," Lily's voice broke. "You did? For years?" They cried together on the floor, not the hysterical sobs of trauma, but the deep, exhausted cries of people who had spent too long holding it in. The media descended. They called it the Ella Project. Investigative reporters pieced together the fragments Carla released. Children taken under religious cover, personalities rewritten, identities reassigned, dozens of missing kids now reclassified as potential victims. Carla gave Lily the option, go public or stay private. Lily said only this: "I want people to know what happened, but I don't want to be a symbol. I want to be a girl who came back." Megan kept Lily's photo on the refrigerator now, the same photo from her 6th birthday, the one with the balloon drifting just out of frame. They had it restored, framed, and placed beside a new photo, one taken the day they planted flowers where Buddy had once been buried. The old house had since been sold again, but Clyde helped them get access to the yard one last time. Lily brought the dog tag, tied it to a small wooden cross, buried it in fresh soil beside daffodils. For the first time in years, Megan saw her daughter smile. A real smile, small, wounded, but hers. Clyde still checked in once a week. He brought groceries sometimes, or sat on the porch with Lily, sipping lemonade and saying nothing. He didn't need answers. He just needed her to know she had someone steady in her life. One afternoon, Lily handed him a drawing. It was of the backyard. Him, the porch, and her. Together. Clyde blinked back tears and said, I never had a granddaughter." She hugged him without a word. Dr. Reynolds recommended a specialized trauma therapist. Lily started going weekly. She hated it at first, but over time, the sessions gave her tools, names for what she was feeling: fragmentation, identity trauma, reassociation. She began journaling and painting. Sometimes her hands would tremble uncontrollably when she painted red, but she kept going because now she was choosing the colors. Detective Carla Monroe received a commendation from the department. She gave it to Lily. "You're the one who never gave up," she said. Lily shook her head. "I almost did, so many times." "But you didn't," Carla squeezed her hand, "and that makes you the strongest person I've ever known." Karen Holloway confessed in court. She took a plea deal in exchange for testimony. Margaret Harrow was confirmed to have fled the country using falsified documents. Interpol issued a red notice. The case was now international, but Lily didn't care anymore. She had faced the Red Room and walked out. On her 21st birthday, Megan threw a small party. Just family: Clyde, Carla, a few of Lily's art classmates. No reporters, no speeches. Just cake, quiet music, and Buddy's collar, now polished and hung by the window like an ornament. When they sang Happy Birthday, Lily looked around the room and said, "This is the first one I remember." That night she sat alone on the porch. Stars overhead, crickets chirping, the world finally quiet again. She opened her journal, wrote only one sentence: "They made me forget who I was, but I never stopped being me." She looked up, exhaled, and whispered to the night, "I'm Lily. And I'm still here." Eugene, Oregon, 14 years after a girl disappeared chasing her dog into the trees, had changed. The park had new benches now, a few new signs. The riverbank had been reinforced after the last winter flood. But beneath it all, the same roots still ran, the same silence after dusk, the same stillness in the air, like something waiting to return. Lily sat on the old bench near the water's edge. It had taken her months to come back here. Not to revisit the moment she vanished, but to redefine it. She had asked Megan to let her come alone this time. Clyde had driven her and waited in the car. Carla had checked in that morning, just in case. But Lily came here not as a victim, not as a case number. She came as a witness to her own survival. She brought a balloon, not red, this time blue, tied with ribbon, simple. She let it go, watched it rise into the sky, slow and steady, and whispered, "I remember." Back home, she kept the tape in a fireproof box, the one where her 6-year-old voice declared she was Lily, not Ella, not number 28. Lily, it was proof. But it wasn't her identity anymore. Her identity was in her paintings now, the ones of forests and doors and wide-open skies, the ones with names like Threshold Return Voice, each one sold anonymously online under the name S.L. Still Lily. She never signed her full name because who she was couldn't be captured in 5 letters. It had taken her years to understand that. Megan, too, had changed. She no longer wore grief like armor. She'd stopped explaining the past to new people, stopped telling the full story. Now she said, "This is my daughter Lily. She's an artist." And when people asked if they were close, she smiled and said, "We're learning each other again." Clyde passed away in the spring. It wasn't sudden. Lily had been there through it all. The hospital visits, the soft decline. He left her a letter. In it, one line stood out: "You were never mine, but I will always be yours." She framed it, hung it beside her favorite drawing of the night sky over his porch. She named it Guardian. On the anniversary of her return, Lily got an unexpected package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small velvet bag, just like the one she had found in the closet years ago. But this one held a silver necklace, a simple tag, etched with one word, truth. There was no note, no explanation. But Lily didn't need one. Somewhere, someone was still watching. But she no longer felt fear. She felt known and unafraid. One afternoon, she returned to Alton Baker Park again, this time with a group of girls from a support program she volunteered with. They didn't know her full story, just that she listened more than she spoke, and that when she spoke, she said things that stuck with you. One girl, about 12, asked her, "Do you ever wish you could forget everything?" Lily thought for a moment, then smiled. "Sometimes," she said, "but then I remembering is what saved me." And so the girl who had vanished, the one who walked into a stranger's backyard asking for her dog, was never truly gone. She had been rewritten, erased, but not extinguished. And when the time came, she rewrote herself, line by line, name by name, memory by memory, until she became her own story again. Where were you when you first heard her name? Was it in a headline, in a police report, on a park flyer, or maybe it was here, in her voice, in this story, in this truth? Now you carry a piece of her with you, because when a memory is shared, it multiplies, it survives, just like Lily. Some names are forgotten, others are taken, but some survive every silence.